We live in a world where first impressions are everything, and the truth is, most people waste theirs. They fall into the same boring rhythm, the same predictable words, the same lifeless greeting that does nothing but push them into the crowd of forgettable faces. But when you learn how to break that cycle, when you learn the art of saying something different, something magnetic, you stop being ordinary. You become unforgettable. The biggest mistake people make in conversation is stepping into the cliché trap without even realizing it. They say what everyone else says, and because of that, they get the exact same reaction everyone else gets. Nothing special. Hey, how are you? Sounds polite on the surface, but the truth is it does nothing to move emotions, nothing to stand out, nothing to create a spark. Think about how many times someone has said those words to you today. You can't even count them because your brain doesn't bother saving them. It knows those words are ordinary. They carry no uniqueness, no intention, no magnetism. They're filler, and filler never changes the way you feel. When you open a conversation with the same predictable line, you instantly put yourself in the category of average. And average is forgettable. Nobody remembers the person who blended in. Nobody chases the memory of someone who didn't make them feel anything. The cliché trap is like quicksand. It feels safe to step in because everyone else is doing it, but once you're in, it drags you down into invisibility. You become just another voice, another face, another moment that disappears as fast as it arrived. But here's the truth: people don't connect to words, they connect to feelings. A greeting should never be about being polite, it should be about being memorable. If the words you choose don't shift energy, don't create even the smallest spark of curiosity, they fail. Hi, how are you? Is not wrong, it's just empty. It's the equivalent of knocking on a door without ever stepping inside. The sound happens, but nothing begins. Falling into the cliché trap also signals something deeper. It shows hesitation. It shows a lack of boldness, as if you're afraid to be different, as if you're afraid to be noticed. But confidence lives in breaking patterns. Power lives in saying what others are too nervous to say. The very first words out of your mouth set the tone for everything that follows. If you start bland, you stay bland. If you start bold, you set fire to curiosity, and that fire keeps burning. So you need to understand this. Every time you reach for that dull, overused opener, you're choosing to fade. And every time you dare to say something new, you're choosing to stand out. The cliché trap is where conversations go to die. The only way to escape it is to stop being predictable and start being unforgettable. The reason first words matter so much is because they either create a spark or they don't. And when there's no spark, there's no energy to carry the conversation forward. A spark is that instant moment when something shifts inside the other person, when their attention is caught, when they can't help but lean closer because what you just said pulled them out of autopilot. Most interactions people have throughout the day are flat, routine, and mechanical. They meet countless faces, exchange predictable greetings, and forget them instantly. But then someone arrives who doesn't speak in routine, someone who doesn't use the dull patterns everyone else repeats, and suddenly the air feels different. That's the spark effect. It's not about being clever for the sake of it, and it's not about trying too hard to impress. A spark is born when your words carry life. It could be a playful statement, an unexpected observation, or even a subtle tease that shifts the emotional temperature in the moment. What matters is that it feels alive, it feels intentional, it feels different from the background noise. The moment that happens, the other person's mind wakes up. They stop scrolling through the same old rhythm, and instead they're drawn into yours. The spark effect works because humans are wired for novelty. The brain craves what feels new and exciting. It locks onto anything that stands apart from the ordinary. When you say something different, you're not just starting a conversation, you're creating an emotional experience. And emotions are sticky, they linger, they echo, they make you unforgettable. That's why one simple shift in the way you open can turn a forgettable moment into one that plays in their mind long after. Think about it, a dull greeting fades before it even lands, but a line that sparks curiosity or makes them smile plants itself deeply. They replay it. They wonder about you. They want more. This is the power of energy in words. You're not just speaking, you're sparking. You're not just opening a door. You're pulling someone inside a room they don't want to leave. The spark is the difference between blending into the day and becoming the highlight of it. It's the first domino that sets the entire chain in motion, and once it falls, everything else flows effortlessly. Most people think a greeting is just a polite formality, but the truth is, the way you begin speaks volumes about who you are. That's where personalization becomes powerful. Instead of reaching for the standard, lifeless, "Hi, how are you?" you shift into words that show presence, awareness, and genuine attention. Personalization means you're not giving the same recycled line you would offer to anyone. You're crafting something that belongs to this moment, to this person, to this interaction. That instantly changes the energy because it feels intentional. And when something feels intentional, it feels meaningful. Imagine being on the receiving end of words that are clearly tailored to you. Instead of the default script, you hear something that acknowledges your mood, your environment, or something unique about you. Instantly, it tells your mind, this person sees me, this person is engaged, this person is awake to the moment. That level of awareness is magnetic because most people wander through conversations half asleep. When someone breaks that rhythm with a personalized opener, it feels refreshing, it feels alive, and it makes you want to give them more of your attention. Personalization also creates connection without effort. A simple observation can become the key that unlocks curiosity. It could be playful, it could be thoughtful, it could even be teasing. But the fact that it's specific makes it unforgettable. Generic words slide off because they belong to everyone, but personal words stick because they belong to you. And when someone feels that the conversation is directed at them rather than thrown into the air, they're far more likely to engage fully. Another hidden power of personalization is that it naturally builds intrigue. When you say something unique, the other person begins to wonder about you. Why did you choose those words? What do you notice about me? Who are you to break the pattern so confidently? That curiosity is the beginning of attraction. It makes them want to stay in the moment longer just to uncover more of your perspective. The truth is, personalization doesn't require grand effort. It only takes presence, the ability to step out of autopilot and into awareness. And when you do that, you shift from being another forgettable interaction to being the highlight of their day. Personalization tells them, you're not just anyone to me, you're someone worth noticing. And that feeling is impossible to ignore. Words are not just sounds we throw into the air. They carry energy, they carry intention, they carry the power to pull someone closer or push them away. That's why magnetic language matters. Magnetic language is the difference between words that fall flat and words that linger in the mind, words that replay long after the moment is over. Most people don't realize how much weight their choice of words carries. They use empty fillers, predictable phrases, and casual lines that do nothing to stir emotion. But when you switch to magnetic language, everything changes. You stop speaking just to fill silence and start speaking in a way that commands attention. Magnetic language is playful yet intentional. It creates tension without hostility, curiosity without confusion, attraction without effort. Think of it as words that spark imagination. Instead of saying something bland like, "Hi, how are you?" you drop a line that makes them wonder, that makes them feel. It could be teasing in tone. It could be slightly mysterious. It could even carry warmth that feels rare in a world of shallow exchanges. The point isn't to sound rehearsed, it's to sound alive. When your words have color, texture, and rhythm, they pull people in because they don't hear them every day. Another secret of magnetic language is that it makes the listener participate. A flat question like, "How are you?" gets a flat response, but a playful remark or intriguing statement invites engagement. It stirs curiosity, and curiosity is irresistible. Suddenly, the other person isn't just answering. They're leaning forward. They're curious about what you'll say next. They're hooked. That's what magnetic words do. They don't just start a conversation. They build momentum that keeps the exchange flowing effortlessly. Confidence is the foundation of magnetic language. You can't deliver powerful words with shaky energy. The same sentence said with uncertainty loses all of its pull. But when you let your voice, your tone, and your energy match the boldness of your words, it creates a powerful effect. The listener feels it not just in their ears, but in their body. They feel the confidence, the playfulness, the spark of something different. And that's what makes your words unforgettable. Magnetic language isn't about memorizing clever lines. It's about stepping into a mindset where your words are alive with intention. Once you start speaking with that energy, the impact is undeniable. You don't just say words, you cast them like spells. And that is what makes someone yours from the very first moment. Confidence changes everything. It's not just about what you say, it's about how you say it. Two people can use the same exact words, yet one will sound magnetic and the other will sound invisible. The difference is confidence. Most people hide behind politeness, behind safe phrases like, "Hi, how are you?" because they're afraid of taking risks. They fear standing out, so they choose to blend in. But blending in is the fastest way to be forgotten. Confidence is what flips the switch. It transforms ordinary words into something alive, something bold, something impossible to ignore. When you approach with confidence, your energy carries authority. You don't ask for permission to be noticed, you claim it. You don't wonder if your words will land, you speak as though they already have power. That energy alone changes how people respond to you. Confidence is contagious. The person in front of you feels it, mirrors it, and begins to engage with you at that same level. It pulls them into your rhythm instead of leaving you stuck in theirs. What makes confidence so powerful is that it removes hesitation. Hesitation kills attraction because it signals uncertainty. When your voice wavers, when your words feel unsure, the other person senses it immediately. But when your tone is steady, when your eye contact holds, when your body language matches your words, it creates trust. It tells them you believe in what you're saying, and that makes them want to believe in it too. That's why the confidence switch matters. It's not just a shift in what you say, it's a shift in who you are in that moment. Confidence also allows you to be playful. When you're not worried about sounding perfect, you free yourself to tease, to laugh, to take risks with your words. That freedom is attractive because it shows strength. It shows you're comfortable in your own skin, and comfort is magnetic. People are drawn to those who don't second guess themselves, who speak with ease and intention. That's why a confident greeting, even if it's simple, feels more alive than the most clever line delivered nervously. The truth is, confidence isn't about being loud or forceful. It's about certainty. It's about knowing that you don't need to play safe to be accepted. When you flip that switch, when you drop the bland phrases and step boldly into your words, you create an opening that feels powerful, and that power lingers. Confidence is the difference between being heard and being remembered. The opening line is only the beginning. What truly matters is what comes after, because a spark without follow-through dies out quickly. That's where the hook and hold come in. The hook is the moment you grab attention. The hold is the way you keep it. Too many people think one clever sentence is enough, but if you can't sustain the energy, the conversation collapses. The hook is like striking a match. It flares bright, but the hold is the fuel that keeps the fire alive. Without both, connection fades before it has a chance to grow. When you create a strong hook, you immediately separate yourself from the ordinary. But the hold is what transforms that separation into a real bond. Holding attention means building momentum, feeding curiosity, giving just enough for the other person to want more. It's about layering intrigue, warmth, an energy in a way that makes the interaction feel alive from start to finish. The best part is that the hold doesn't require effortful performance. It only requires presence. Listening with intention, responding with playfulness, and keeping the rhythm flowing is what sustains attraction. Think of it like music. The hook is the opening note that grabs your ear, but the hold is the melody that keeps you listening. If the melody breaks, if it falls flat, the song loses its power. But when the flow continues, the experience becomes immersive. That's exactly how conversation works. You don't just catch attention once. You earn it again and again with every word, every reaction, every pause filled with confidence rather than silence. The hold also relies on emotional shifts. People are drawn to variety, to conversation that feels dynamic instead of predictable. You don't keep attention by staying in one lane. You mix teasing with sincerity, curiosity with warmth, boldness with softness. That contrast keeps the mind engaged. It keeps the heart leaning closer. The hold is about creating a rhythm that feels unpredictable in the best way. In the end, the hook and hold are not tricks. They're a flow of energy. The hook opens the door. The hold makes them want to stay inside. When you master both, you don't just start a conversation, you create a connection that grows deeper with every moment. That's how you move from being noticed to being unforgettable. Everything begins with words, but not just any words, the right ones, spoken with the right energy. A forgettable greeting will always fade into the background, while a bold, intentional opening plants itself in memory. When you step out of the cliché trap, when you spark curiosity, when you personalize your words, when you speak with magnetism and confidence, you shift from being ordinary to being extraordinary. The hook pulls them in, the hold keeps them there, and the connection that follows becomes something rare. It isn't about being perfect, and it isn't about rehearsed lines. It's about presence. It's about daring to break patterns and choosing to stand out. Once you understand the power of your first words, you'll never waste them again. Because the moment you stop saying what everyone else says, you stop being who everyone else is. You become unforgettable. And that is where everything begins.